you need to have the right tactics if you really want to make your demo shine. So, Matt, I know you have a great process for this. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so the perfect deal process, first of all, when I was doing demos, I was just like you said at the beginning, Adrian, where I didn't quite know what to do. It's just like, hey, let's just show them the product and I'll just show them all the cool things in the product. And it wasn't closing at the rate that I had hoped. And I was frustrated and I was struggling and I needed to have an answer. And the perfect deal process was the answer. And I basically pulled a bunch of different tactics from other industries and from some of the most famous books and thinkers out there on sales, but I needed something that was for SaaS and for software, and I wasn't quite finding the answer. So I kind of took these pieces from everywhere and created the perfect deal process. And what it is, the DEAL means something. It's an acronym that stands for something. So I can walk you through it. And Adrian, if you want to show the next slide, just so we can see the framework. Discover is D. So we need to have a strong discovery process. That's the foundation for everything. When you're doing discovery, we want to dive in. We want to figure out exactly what's going on. What makes this person tick and what are they hoping for and what are they trying to get to and what is their pain? What are they really struggling with? We absolutely have to understand them on a really deep level. We're going to talk more about this coming up. Next is educate. We need to educate them. Buyers trust companies and people who educate them. And we need to make sure we do that. Plus, within the educate process, we should be helping them understand shifts or transformations that are going on in the industry. And if you can do that, they're going to love you and they're going to want to follow everything you say. Once we do those things, now we can associate. We can associate our solution to their struggles and their problems, as well as some of the shifts that are happening in the industry we've educated them on. So if you can associate your product, your tool, to their challenges, they're going to know that this is the answer for you. And finally, lead. Lead doesn't refer to that thing that you get when a person signs up on your website. I'm talking about leading the conversation. Take charge. As sales reps, as people who are running the sales process, you should be in absolute control the entire time during the process. This doesn't mean being a jerk, doesn't mean doing everything against them. It means just own the process. They've never been through your sales process. You've done it hundreds of times. You know the best way for somebody to buy your product. You take control, guide the conversation, lead the process. So that's it. DEAL, discover, educate, associate, lead.
Matt, do you mind telling me a little bit more about these value breadcrumbs? How can you space that out throughout a demo?
Well, I mean, I think Hannah's actually awesome at this, but what I would say is I want to make sure to build and structure my demos so that I'm fitting their needs, right? So too many times people are just reading a script within a demo and it's super frustrating. I watch a lot of demos and I critique them and coach them, and people just go through a script and it's super obvious. And I remember seeing so many demos where they get to the end and the person says, well, what about this? And it's something they said in discovery that they absolutely need, and they never once covered it. So you've got to nail their exact challenges and what they need. Don't just follow the script, but have a more malleable process that you can work through depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah, I think a big part. So I also watch a lot of demos. I've got a client I'm working with, and they do discovery demos, right? And they do a ton of them every day, and there's a ton of reps. And the same thing comes up. I talk about, okay, so where's the value in that? So the first thing is really breaking down what value is. Value is worth. And I think a lot of people forget that. Value is worth. People associate different things. They associate value in different ways, right? So what one person might see as valuable, another person may not. And we have to really understand that it's a subjective concept. So one of the key things you need to do very early on in a demo is understand, what does value mean to this individual? So breaking that down further, it's really understanding, okay, in order for me to help them understand if this is worth it, I need to know what's important to them. That is literally the critical thing. What is important for you, firstly, to understand today, but more importantly, in general. So where Matt's talking about that association, right? And an education piece, we really need to be able to say, all right, so I know what, you know what your product does, right? But I need to know what's important to you. And I do that by helping a prospect to walk through their process. How do you currently work? What are the pivotal parts of your process in how you deliver outcomes to your business? When I start to help you map that out, I can navigate my demo in line with that process. Otherwise, what the hell are we here for? All you're going to do, and I can guarantee challenge me. There's going to be a couple of people that put one in. I can watch 10 of your demos and they look exactly the same. And the reason why is because when we're talking about value, we take one scenario where it's worked for somebody else. And we're like, well, that retail client, they loved it. This is all they looked at. And then we're like, this retail client, it's going to be the same thing. And they may be like, I mean, yeah, that was nice. And I tell you how you know, because the response is, yeah, it looks great. Yeah, that's a prospect. That's what they do for about 30 minutes of your demo. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Looks great. Oh, does it do that? Yeah, it looks great. No, you want them to say, yeah, how I do that right now, this makes it better. Yeah, how I do that. Actually, you mentioned this part of my process. Just show me again how that works. Ah, that makes it like you're going to see complete like parallels. So they're going to be doing their own association, right? That's what they're there to deal you as well, right? They're taking you for a deal process. So you need to make sure that you understand value. What is value? It's worth. Worth is subjective. You find out what that worth means by understanding what's important to them. Importance is about priorities. I'm going to have 25 things that's important to me. Right now, it's important that my son gets back, but I kind of on the panel, he's got childcare. I'm here. We're all good, right? So you need to understand right in this moment what's important to them, that they're prioritizing, rather than assuming because retail company A said that it's important for them. So that's about value and breadcrumbs. And you want to go through the process and add value throughout.
I love that. And did you guys hear when she said, that's nice, right? If you hear that's nice on your demo, I tell my clients, that's not what you want to hear. You don't want to hear, hey, that's nice. That's not what we need. We need them to have like, be smacked in the face like, holy cow, this is a game changer for us. And one of the things she said, guys, I hope everybody got this because it's super, super awesome. Ask process questions. Too many times in discovery, people are asking basic questions. We're like, okay, how many users do you have? And oh, you say you want a CRM? Okay, cool. Check. They're a fit. They want a CRM. No, ask them their process. Hey, if this happens, how do you solve that today? And ask them things that you know that they're bad at. If you know your market well enough, you should know who's bad at something and that they're bad at this in general, they're not doing it at all, and something that your product does great. And ask that question, hey, how do you accomplish this if this comes up? And they're going to just explode and say, oh, well, we can't, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to dive into this. And now you can pounce. Okay. So ask the process questions, just like Hannah said, it's super, super important. That way you can fix the process for them. No, I think it's good to have questions. There's lots of reasons to have questions come up during the demo process. I mean, first of all, I want to know that they're not sleeping, right? I want to know that I didn't like put these guys down. So I want to see interest. I want to see if they're listening, if they ask key questions about something we just talked about and covered. That shows me that they're paying attention, they're awake, and they're actually curious and trying to see if this is going to fit within their workflow. So I absolutely think it's super important. And also, you know, we want objections. Early in my career, I was always like, oh, I hope they don't object to this, hope they don't object. And I overcame that and realized we want the objections, because if they don't mention them, then they're holding on to them and then they go away and we never hear about it. We want them to come out so we can help them overcome it. Hey, I'm not quite sure about your training process. Okay, let me explain the training. Or I don't know if the cost is going to fit for us. Or let me explain the ROI. Whatever it is, we want to hear that. And so I think it's really important to get those questions out.
So it's a really good way of gauging how you feel your demo is going as well. Which, speaking of which, I want to know from the audience, how would you guys rate your demos? Let us know in this poll. Would you think it's green, meaning all good, I'm doing fantastic? Yellow, it could use some work. And red, help, everything's on fire. This is fine, but I need to do better. So please let us know in the poll. And now, Hannah, I know you had a good point on this, right? About objections and how to overcome them, specifically in the demo process. What are some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, someone mentioned a comment earlier again in the chat, and it was just talking about objections being conversation starters. That's all it is. I mean, that's essentially what it is. But another thing as well is sometimes when you're not getting enough questions, you need to trigger questions, right? So we were talking a little bit about being an expert in their process, really understanding what, you know, how they go about doing their job. Like, what is it that you do? How does it work? What's the step-by-step process? Because you want to throw some scenarios out there. If you're, and this is how you're going to gauge their interest as well. So, you know, hey, Miss Prospect, we spent some time talking about, you know, this area of the platform in line with this function that you do. If we switch this on tomorrow and your team were logged in, what's the first question? What's some of the questions they're going to ask? Like, you need to trigger those questions to get her to be like, actually, the first thing we're going to have is people won't want to switch over. Okay, change management. Let's dig into that. You literally need to trigger question, and that some people are like that. They need to digest stuff, and that's another thing during demos as well. When you're thinking about people that aren't asking a lot of questions, it's not always disinterest. So I don't know how many people at a high level know about system 1 and system 2 thinking, right? System 1 is like, it's that response. You walk into the road, you see a car, you jump out, you know what to do. It's just an automatic response, right? But it's that system 2 that processes that later on, 3 hours later, you're crying, oh my God, I almost died, right? It's slower. It's much more rational. So in a demo where someone is seeing something for the first time, they may have initially spoken to your SDR or BDR. So they're speaking to you for the first time. They're trying to work out who you are. They're looking at, we're on video now. I'm kind of like, don't really like her shirt. All of these things are happening, right? There's another tab up. We need to get them to transition some way into their system 2 thinking. And that helps by us helping to probe. So you can't just be like, so any questions at this stage? Which is what everybody does. So you got any questions at this point? I'm still with my system 1, emotional responses. Nah, nothing's triggered me to say a response yet. So give me a moment. Don't say, hey, are you in system 2 thinking? They're going to be like, what does that mean? However, you do need to get to a place where you recognize they're still digesting it. They're still digesting it. So, hey, we've gone through a lot right now. I'm thinking, I saw you raise your eyebrow at that point earlier, and I made about this part of the system. What triggered that? What's going on there? Actually, I was just thinking that it's so different to how we currently work. And I'm just thinking about how that would, okay, tell me more. There we go. But it's not always disinterest. Don't just think someone's disinterested. They need to process it. Help them process it, giving scenarios from other clients and other things like that. So that's really what we want to think about. Objections, let's try and trigger them. If they haven't asked anything, we need to trigger them. And it's just a conversation starter. So don't get too defensive. And if they're really silent, help to try and get them into that rational thinking, where they can start to think about things better and respond to you.